South Africa's political formations, civil society and government are gathered at the University of the Western Cape, the political home of the left, to chart a new way forward in a political era of coalitions. Coalition governments in the country are currently unregulated. Metro municipalities are seeing a high turnover of mayors, which is causing instability and lack of service delivery. The governing party also wants the mayoral system to be abolished and the executive committee system to be constituted, which is Section 25 of the Municipal Structures Act, which will be amended, being similar to what is being used in the eThekwini municipality in all of the metros of the country. Now the ANC and the DA have proposed the introduction of a threshold in order to replace the PR system, which will determine the number of political representations in parliament, legislatures and councils.
The party that has won the largest votes should lead the coalition in that municipality. An executive position should be allocated in proportion to the votes obtained by coalition partners. Coalition government should reflect the will of the people, not elite deal-making among parties. 4, a threshold should be introduced so that there is a degree of legitimacy with regard to what amount of electoral support qualifies a party or candidate to be part of councils and coalition governments.
The DA also wants the time of constituting a coalition government to be extended from 14 days to 30, whilst motions of no confidence to be limited to 1 in a year, unless if the mayor, premier or president breaks the law. Whilst singing from the same hymn book as the ANC on the threshold system and amending the Municipal Structures Act.
To amend the Municipal Structures Act, and this one is about limiting the motions of no confidence in a mayor or a speaker. Again, the idea here is to make sure that we instill stability, and we would have the same safety mechanism that I spoke about in the previous piece of legislation that would say unless there has a law been broken.
The ANC and the DA are, however, facing resistance from smaller parties who feel as if these two organizations are trying to exclude them from broader electoral politics of the country.
These proposals of a threshold are a clear violation of Section 86 of the Constitution, and they are thus unconstitutional and are driven by a desperate attempt to hold on to power. The two biggest parties are afraid of the prospect of losing power and have gone as far as trying to undermine the Constitution in order to achieve their selfish desires.
The IFP is willing to consider regulations if such will be of equal benefit to all parties involved, of benefit to the electorate and in line with the Constitution.
We are thankful to this initiative. The question is whether it has gone far enough. Why not look at the entire electoral system? For instance, something as simple as the appointment of some of the service providers of the IEC remains a state secret.
We believe in one motion of no confidence in an office bearer per annum, and when we also say that the current proportional composition of collective executive committees to allow for the formation of coalition governments and multi-party representation regardless of the applicable mayoral system.
The EFF rejected the invitation to form part of the National Coalition Dialogue, whilst the ATM walked out after their president, Vuyo Zungula, finished his address. The consensus amongst the smaller parties is to reject the threshold introduction, as their survival is dependent on the proportional representation system. Samkele Masego, SABC News, Cape Town.
ATM leader Vuyo Zungula staged a walkout after making a scathing submission during the dialogue. Zungula criticized Parliament for recently going on a study tour in Europe to learn about coalition governments, saying other smaller parties were excluded. He also slammed the DA for its proposal that the number of vote of no confidence motions should be limited in coalition governments. ATM President Vuyo Zungula now joins us via our Zoom link. Vuyo, thank you so much for joining us here on the late edition. Of course, we saw images from that meeting, that dialogue taking place in Cape Town today, and you staging a walkout. Why did you stage that walkout?
Bali, we are not going to participate in a dialogue that is purported to be about the people, about good governance, about the coming together of parties in order to reach a consensus, whereas the actual truth is that there's actually a bill that the Department of COGTA has already put in place. So they are using that dialogue to tick a box to say there has been consultation with other parties. Now, they are basically using this entire dialogue as a mechanism of wanting to stay in power through the back door. And Mbali, this is not about local government, because if it was about local government, the ANC and the DA, they know how to work together. The ANC and the DA, they could have, changed the mayors and the speakers in municipalities. This is all about 2024, because they want in 2024 to have all of these regulations that will benefit them as the two biggest parties. So that is why we as the ATM, we felt that we're not going to participate in such a dialogue.
And of course, the claims you are making, we saw those claims coming out from the UDM saying that there is indeed already a draft bill. And of course, this was even confirmed by the Deputy Minister for COGTA, Park Stau. So what was the point of having this dialogue in the first place if it seems as if, decisions have been taken here?
Exactly our point that the ANC is using the state machinery, but using the office of the country's deputy president to call a so-called dialogue in order for them to mobilize political analysts, civil society, interfaith leaders, political leaders, in order to have a discussion or resolutions that benefit them as a party. What we all should understand, again, Bali, is that everywhere, all of these liberation movements, whenever they see that they are going to lose power, they try by hook or crook mechanisms or schemes in order to stay in power. In this case, ANC is using politics by even suggesting that a party with the highest number of votes must be the one that must be allowed to lead a coalition government. Whereas Section 86 of the Constitution allows any member of parliament to be nominated to stand as a president. Now, what the ANC wants, they want to violate that particular section of the Constitution for their own selfish needs.
And of course, we saw other smaller parties saying that the DA and the ANC seem to be colluding to have their own, to look into this matter, and so that they come out on top come 2024 and basically rule out, the position that smaller parties plays in this country, especially in a democracy.
Yeah, what we observed today is that the DA and the ANC have already agreed on a coalition for 2024. Now, they want to have like-minded organizations being part of that moonshot or moonlight pact of theirs. And even if you look at the participants of other parties there, you're shocked, number one, to see that there are parties with no representation whatsoever in any municipality or in any council or in any legislature or even in the National Assembly. Those parties were active participants in those discussions. Whereas you've got parties that are currently having representation in some municipalities, but they were not included, which clearly shows that even the composition of this dialogue, it was done deliberately to have people who are going to speak the same tune as the ANC, so that the outcome of this so-called dialogue is what the ANC wants. What the ANC wants, it is very clear, it wants to retain power next year by all means. And they are using now this dialogue to have your analysts, your facilitators. You listen to some of the facilitators that were speaking there. We know that they are pro-ANC. You listen to some of the people that are given tasks to lead in some of these commissions. It is ANC members. Therefore, they are using the government resources in order to, to scheme a way of staying in power. That is why, as the ATM, we decided to leave, and we've mobilized other parties as well to see that dialogue for a shame, or as a shame, because it is what the ANC wants. It wants to use the state machinery to stay in power through the back door.
And should this bill be passed in Parliament, what action do you plan on taking as the African Transformation Movement?
We are definitely going to challenge that bill. There's no way in which we can accept a bill that is unconstitutional, a bill that says we need to limit the number of votes of no confidence. Whereas the sponsors of that section, which is the DA, we know that currently in Johannesburg and in Tshwane, they are also mobilizing for a motion of no confidence against the Speaker and the Mayor, respectively. In the National Assembly, they have been, for the longest time, submitted tons of motions of no confidence in the previous parliaments. Now, they want to basically violate the constitution in order for them to remain in power. Again, there is, in terms of our democracy, they want the same type of parties with the same funders, parties who are controlled in the same place to be the ones that remain in parliament. The parties that are not dictated to by their own funders, they must be pushed out of parliament. That is what they want. And also it is very worrying that now they want to push for constitutional amendments for them to stay in power instead of amending the constitution to benefit the people. It is something that we as the ATM are worried about, but we are going to continue to call this marriage of convenience between the DA and the ANC out, because the citizens deserve to know that the ANC and the DA are scheming and they are wanting to find means and ways to stay in power in 2024.
Vuyo Zungula, thank you so much for your time. That is a leader of the ATM party, Vuyo Zungula, just giving us his insights in terms of that dialogue which is taking place. It is over 2 days. It does indeed come to an end tomorrow.